Welcome back, listeners, to Learning from Friends. My name is Cade Curtis, your tour guide on this lovely adventure. Now, for those that are back here, we left off with speaking with my friend Jade about being a military spouse. We discussed the stereotypes, what it was like for her with the relationship with her husband, how that evolved over the years, and how handling all those different moves. Now, what we want to pick up on today is continuing this conversation because it's a great way to be able to learn about a life that to most of us is very unfamiliar. But before we do that, I almost forgot. We have my mom's quote of the day. So, Mom, take it away.
If you have knowledge, let others light their candles by it. Susan J. DeCour.
I'm not sure how I almost forgot that. Mom, thank you. Appreciate everything that you do. So that's picked back up on the conversation that we were having with Jade about being a military spouse. And where we left off at was good old communication. How has your relationship evolved over the years as you're getting older, being a military spouse? Like, how do you keep that fire alive? Because that's a huge thing, over the years. Like, I'm looking at people around me who are in their, 40s, their 50s, their 80s, and trying to keep that fire alive can be a really big challenge at times. And I wonder, what's it like for you?
I definitely find the key to a successful marriage is communication, along with love and respect for each other. As I talked about from personal experience, we found that a lot of our marriage issues were due to not being able to communicate effectively, and we hit a lot of rough patches in our marriage with the stresses and factors of the military lifestyle. Marriage counseling helped a lot with that to help us improve our communication and communicating our needs and our wants and helping us to be able to balance our life, even with two kids and moving and not being able to physically be together due to deployment. We're in a stronger, loving relationship now than we were years ago from being able to communicate our needs and wants to each other. I find that having that balance of us time together as a couple, balance with having family time, and also importantly, having personal time. As we talked about the different hats that I wear, my husband also wears many hats too. And it's important that he has work, comes home and has family time, but also make sure that he has his own time as well to go for his hobbies or just have a drive around the neighborhood just to get away and have some alone time to himself.
Yeah, work-life balance is so hard.
Yes. I feel that is a key to happy life, happy relationship, is maintaining happiness for yourself as well. Keeping the fire alive on deployment is very hard, especially we can't exactly send naughty messages or pictures because any communication is looked at.
Yeah.
So it is very difficult to keep that alive, but a lot of that is prepping beforehand. He's able to take things on his, have things on his phone or pictures or messages that we are able to have and before going on deployment. And then also things that we look forward to and trips and family time and couple time together when he returns. That gives him something to look forward to.
That's true. That sometimes, what is the words I'm looking for? Apartness makes the heart grow fonder kind of range as well at times.
Yeah, distance makes the heart grow fonder.
That's the words. But being able to admit you need help and sometimes being able to admit to go and agree to go to counseling or going and seeking someone else's advice, it's hard. Like, I know for me, it was really challenging when I was having the struggles with the start of my anxiety and depression stuff that I go through all the time, is being able to admit you need it and then going to somebody and becoming vulnerable enough to talk about it. And sometimes it may take going to 2 or 3 different counselors to find somebody that works for you, and being willing to go through that challenge together and being able to remember to actually take the tools that you learned from your tool that you're supposed to put in your toolbox from counseling and actually taking them out and using them. Because you could sit there and on the couch and go, yeah, sure, and then walk out the door and be like, nope, not for me, whatever. And some people do that. They go through and I remember the first couple times that I went through, I never would accept it. I couldn't figure out what it was. My brain was so proudful of, oh, I'm broken. Something's wrong with me because I'm having to go and do this. But now as I get older, I've become more and more of an advocate of, dude, this has been the best thing for me. Like, look, like, well, I've gone and seen like 7 or 8 different counselors, but you know what? It led me to this, and look where I'm at now, and look what I'm doing. And I could have cut this so much shorter if I just would have listened to myself and done this earlier. So I made that comment. If I get to go back in time, I would go back to myself and just kind of start saying, hey, the moment you have some issues with this, get ahead of it by going to counseling a little bit better and be accepting of listening to somebody, because we are teenagers in our early 20s think we can take on the world and know it all.
I wholeheartedly agree and advocate all the time for mental health and counseling and support, because of the stigma that surrounds it is detrimental to the care that's needed. And I am
Yes.
very, very supportive of it. And I don't want to say I brag about it, but I do make sure that it comes up in those conversations to let people know that it's okay. Like
Yeah.
marriage counseling, yes, go for it. It helps. It may not help everybody. It did for us, and I strongly encourage it. And like you said, if you don't like the first counselor that you see another one. I've had that same thing
Yep.
where I've talked to a counselor that we just didn't vibe, so tried a different one and found until I found one that understood my struggles and what I was getting at and provide that support.
I've had different medications prescribed to me over the years that at first, when I first started taking them, like, I don't like this. This is not for me, but I kind of like the counselor in that range. And then the way that the vibe, the communication kind of continue, I go, okay, I need to go to someone else. And the moment I get to another person, they're like, that medication you shouldn't be on. And this, because each doctor, each person has their own opinion of what they think needs to be the treatment and this and that. And you need to have that balance between, okay, you like the person and you agree with how their treatment is, and with the results that you're getting out of it, is it worth a whole circle for you? So that's hard.
For as a military spouse, I do encourage it for couples, but also for service members. There's a huge stigma in the military that government about mental health and the needs,
Yes.
and they look down upon counseling, and the stigma is trying to change and encourage more and more service members to seek counseling and mental health support resources. And so my husband is goes and tells a lot of the new sailors that he counsels, and he is very open with, yep, I did marriage counseling. I've gone to see the psych boss. I've done counseling personally for him, marriage counseling. He's very open about it. And a lot of people are shocked that, oh wow, you've gone and you talked to a counselor, and he's like, yep, go do it.
Yep.
He's very supportive, very encouraging.
The more honest you are, I think the person can connect to you a little bit better. And they
Yes.
can be able to, if they're thinking about it and they know someone that's doing it, they can go and like talk to them individually, and they can feel more comfortable with them that way, rather than like, oh, I'm going to go to my officer and I'm not sure if they do this, if they're okay with this. But if you know that as your husband's talking and saying something, oh my gosh, he said he specifically had that, I can go talk to him specifically about that now because I know he has some knowledge, and you feel a little bit easier to do so. So
Yeah,
yeah.
we were, grew up being taught to be independent, that
Yep.
you have to do things on your own and not ask for help every step of the way and be independent and strong. And now I'm going back and trying to normalize asking for help.
Yeah, exactly.
Normalize that it's okay to
That's
ask
true.
for help. That you don't have to do it all by yourself. You can be an independent person as well as asking for help when you're struggling, and that it's okay.
I'm going to turn it sideways here because it's a similar conversation. It's a similar thing with benefits, insurance, life insurance, stipends and stuff, the money portion side of things that comes up. Do military spouses kind of get some of these benefits as well?
Also, a lot of the benefits are actually for the service members specifically. Military spouses really said benefits, more so it's under the service member that they are allotted benefits. With military spouse receiving a military dependent ID, it allows them access on base, commissary shopping, which is the grocery store, medical coverage through TRICARE. There's also the added, you can do pay for the dental coverage. There's life insurance coverage as well. So these are covered through the military service member.
Okay.
Which if the service member is no longer in the military, then the spouse also loses those benefits. It's hard to explain. So it's not individual benefits. It's all with the service member that's allotted to the military spouse being married. So one of those, you talk about insurance, I mentioned TRICARE. TRICARE is the medical coverage for military families. It could be, they have two different kinds, being prime versus standard, where prime is a lot more of the coverage that you see providers on base. And many families don't like the limitation of having to obtain referrals to see specialty appointments. So if you do have a family with a lot of medical needs that has to see different providers outside the basic family doctor, then having referrals, that can be a struggle and stressful for them. So they like to do TRICARE Select and go over with who they are able to choose, and without having to have referrals. For us, I've never had an issue with getting referrals. I don't know if I've just been lucky somehow, but every time I've needed a referral, I've been able to get it easily. And I've talked to other spouses that they struggle to get referrals. So I don't know what I'm doing different, but somehow lucking in with that one.
Don't argue with it.
yeah, I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing.
Knock on wood here. Yeah.
Yes. As far as you talk about stipends, the financial pay and stipends, that again varies depending on the service member, their job rank, location. Obviously, higher ranks make more money, so no different than a civilian job. A basic entry level person makes less than a CEO or manager. So similar to that, higher ranks make more money versus the lower ranking members. They have basic housing allowance, which is BAH, and that's a stipend for housing, which some families use that to stay in housing on base, while others use it to live out in the community. For us, we have always utilized that stipend to stay out in the community, as my husband does not like to work, eat, sleep, live all 24/7 on base.
I don't blame him. That can be a lot. Yeah, exactly.
Separation there. Yes. So that varies depending on where the service member is located. For like in Alabama, with the lower cost of living, the stipend's much lower than compared to California, where it's over $3,000 and it barely covers housing.
Rent,
it's
mortgages.
A lot now.
I can only imagine. Yeah, it's gotten worse today with the way market prices and stuff have gone. We're slowly coming down a little bit, but we'll see how that affects, because rent is becoming a more common thing in this generation rather than owning. So who knows where that goes?
Yes, having to find housing and with a stipend that doesn't always cover. We have a lot of family members that trying to find a place to live are paying hundreds of dollars out of pocket because the stipend doesn't cover the housing. It is a struggle. Thankfully, we were able to make things work for us and without having to live on base, because I know that's one of the things he does not want to do is work, sleep at the same place.
I don't blame you. It's good to have that out there. And understanding how your finances work is a very important thing to be able to make sure that you can balance all this stuff out. And that's just a big part of it.
Oh, I can go into, as far as financial and budgeting, and it's something that I feel like we didn't get enough of in high school to prepare us for the real world with it. And
we could go on a whole on tangent here between the two of us.
Yes,
entirely.
Yes. I do that I know you're talking about all the different hats that I wear, and as kind of a side thing that I like to do is I love numbers. I love playing with numbers, and I love budgeting.
Yep.
So a lot of times if I talk to a military family and the wife is telling me about their struggles, I'm like, grab your laptop and Excel sheet. Come on,
let's go, baby.
Budget. I love helping them budget and to be able to help them, because it is hard with all the moving and pieces. And so budgeting is definitely number one that a lot of people don't have an opinion with.
That's just a big overarching life skill that needs to be better addressed in school. And the last week of school, I usually get like 1 week to play with financial stuff. And I'm like, I try to shove in as much as I can, but I'm like, high school, elementary school, middle school. You could do small, itty bitty little concepts to make them feel familiar with it. And it could go a long way in life and changing generations.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah,
I can.
we're not
I
going
can
to go that
continue
route
talking about
because we could have a whole other conversation there. We'll be here
well,
for
then
2
we
days.
should do a podcast. Yeah, we should do a podcast in the future over me being a financial agent and going over all that.
We'll have to.
Yeah.
Here we go. Looking at here, we have episode 1 right going on here, and we'll pull back in a couple of months and we'll start going back into it because I have a lot of financial things I love to talk about. And my big one is I love reading about financial independence stuff, the FIRE movement. That's a big one for me.
Yes.
Love the FIRE movement. So we'll have another conversation about that one. We'll get that one back in. Something that popped in my head immediately as we're talking about the life insurance, stipends, and things like that. Okay, how is a family member preparing like for the emergency crisis situation handled when a service member is deployed?
And so there's a lot of different emergencies that can happen when service members are deployed. I worked as an ombudsman or volunteered as an ombudsman for my husband's command. And with an ombudsman, I acted as a liaison between the family members and the command. And during a crisis situation, I helped direct families and provide resources and communication between them and their service members. So when we did have a crisis that occurred on the ship, for instance, during COVID, or we had a couple of times that there were medical crises on the ship, the command sends that information to the ombudsman, and we disperse that information to our family members to keep them updated and apprised on changes. As far as the notifications during a crisis, that notification comes from higher ranking individuals, not us. Thankfully, I did not have to deliver any unfortunate news. But during a crisis, they try to alert the family members as soon as possible. With social media nowadays, anything, the service members are able to on the ship see what's going on and post it on social media and alert their family members before, that information can get to them. And so social media helps with the communication a lot. But during a crisis, we try to keep everybody communicated as much as possible.
Good. Yeah.
Same for family members. When we had family members that had death in the family, they were able to reach out to the ombudsman and notify us as well as the Red Cross. And we get messages sent to the command because I'm able to make that phone call to the commanding officer on the ship during deployment, let them know what's going on, and they are able to go and talk to the service member to allow them to get in touch with their family. The fastest that I was able to get somebody was there was an emergency with a family. I called the commanding officer, and within 15 minutes, the service member was able to get in touch with the family. And so being able to help with that and be a liaison during a crisis was a very rewarding volunteer opportunity for me during this deployment.
I can believe that. Yeah.
Yes.
You're changing lives there. You're changing lives.
Yeah. So even though I wasn't able to work during COVID, I was able to still help families. And that was very important to me, as being able to help. And so during an emergency, a lot of families have what they call emergency plans. And it's highly recommended to go over these plans anytime there's changes, with moving every couple of years, changes, but also depending on the deployments as well. Having an emergency plan in place of, hey, if there's a fire, where are you going to evacuate to? If there's an emergency, what plans are going to have in place? For us, when I have an emergency, the first person I was calling was my husband's mom. So my mother-in-law, she wasn't working at the time. So we could easily buy a plane ticket for her, and within a few hours, she would be at our house to take care of us if we needed someone to come stay for an extended period of time. But also building a support system around in our town with other military spouses. That's where building a community of other spouses also attached to the command and have a service member on deployment. We are all, as we joke, we're all in the same boat together.
That's a good one.
So, yeah, we all understood what each other's going through with having the service member gone and relying on each other for support. So having a lot of numbers in my pocket to where if I needed something, I had people to call.
I'm going to say volunteering is working. Never use the words. I'm not, volunteering not the same as you're not getting paid, but really you're getting paid. And yes, you're putting in your hours, your service, and your time and your skills. So volunteering is working. I'm going to go and put that there for you. So don't put yourself backwards saying, "Oh, I wasn't working." You're working. You know, may not getting the same compensation as somebody getting an hourly wage, but you're doing so much more in protecting so many more families and changing lives that way, that I want you just to know that you were making a huge difference when you did that during COVID. That's amazing.
I feel like that is the pay, is the rewarding
Exactly.
experience of it. That we had family members that were trying to buy houses. Like when we were moving and trying to, several of them were moving to different duty stations because after they came back from deployment, we were leaving from California and going to Washington. So a lot of the families were trying to get a head start and move before, 3,000 service members moved into one little city.
Yeah.
So very smart, get a head start on it. I was not one of those that got a head start. I instead went and took that time to go stay with family, but helped a lot of service members and their families coordinate with each other to buy a house, having to make that phone call for proof of life
Oh
that
yeah.
the service member is real, he's alive, and trying to buy a house while he's halfway across the world. And the spouse is home trying to handle all the paperwork as well.
And that's a
And it can
lot.
be a very, very stressful. Yeah. So if you don't make it and get all that paperwork together, you could lose the house, which could
Oh
be
yeah.
detrimental to the families. So it was really great being able to be there and help families through that and be a part of that, as well as during a crisis when you're stressed in an emergency situation. And for me, I might not feel what you're going through as an emergency, but for you, it might be an emergency. And trying to help people as quickly as I can to help resolve their situation and lower their stress levels and help them get through deployment was important to me. So I was on my phone so much during the deployment because as soon as my phone went off that we had an alert of somebody in need, I was able to respond as soon as possible and get them answers. And then if I couldn't get answers, at least I was responding so that they knew somebody was there, somebody heard
That's the big
their
one.
need,
Yep.
and let them know, hey, I cannot answer this, but I'm working on it and I will get back to you. Someone is here, and helping provide resources for them. So in the meantime, while I was trying to help, there was other resources available to them as well.
That's so amazing. Now you're talking about moving. You're talking about people getting from all over the place. You have moved all over the place. What are some of the places that what's the list of where you've moved from over this time?
So far, we started, let's see, go way back to where my husband and I were dating when he was stationed in Charleston, South Carolina, and I was in nursing school in Alabama. We started with a long distance relationship, states away from each other, and built as I said, foundation of friendship and
There
communication.
you go. I did that with my
And
wife. Yeah.
yep, that key communication right there. So we only saw each other. I ended up totaling it up, and between our first year of dating and first year of marriage, we only saw each other for a total of 6 weeks.
Wow.
While he was in Charleston, our schedules were crazy with me in nursing school and him working shift changes. It was crazy. And we found a weekend that we were able to go and we eloped. We couldn't decide. He wanted a beach wedding. I wanted a country wedding. So we decided to have both. We eloped on the beach.
But you did
And
eventually have a wedding that I got to come
yes,
to.
yes,
It was beautiful.
thank you. He proposed, and 4 days later, we eloped on the beach. And then because of the eloping, we were able to get me on the orders that he was about to receive when he finished up with the school that he was doing in Charleston. So I was able to be included with him moving to San Diego, California. So I finished up nursing school and moved to California. So excited to start our marriage and our life
East
together.
Coast to West Coast.
Yes, I moved in December after nursing school, just in time to him leave on deployment in January. So we only got to spend a couple weeks together before he left to go on deployment, and I went back to Georgia, stay with my family, got to see friends and hang out with you guys. That's when we ended up hanging out and going fishing and having great time getting to connect again and talk and friendship keep going. I loved it.
Always important.
Yes, building those the friendships that have lasted all through the move from California. I went back to California, and then we moved up to Washington for just a year. And that's where it wasn't long enough for me to be able to work while we were up there because trying to find a job. And then, by the way, we're military. I'm only going to be here for less than a year.
So hire me. Come
Yeah,
on.
yeah, hire me. By the time you get done training me, I'm going to leave. So that was a very stressful time. Then we moved back to California, and I was able to start working. While we were in Washington, I went back to nursing school to get my bachelor's and finished only my associates. So a little bit more education under my belt. We moved back to California, and I was able to get a nursing job there, and loved living in California. And that's where we thought he was going to go to Japan while I continued my nursing career. Instead of going to Japan, New York it was. So then after only a couple years in California, we moved to New York. Well, it was very, very cold. But we were able to be there on store duty together and have our kids, and he was able to be home for that, which is very, very important
That's
for us.
so amazing.
Very lucky and grateful for that time together. Be able to have him there was very important for us because a lot of families don't have that.
Yeah, a lot do not. It's very true.
Yeah. After New York, we moved back to San Diego, and COVID hit shortly after being there. And he hit back-to-back deployments, and I was over the isolation. So during his last deployment, I went back home to stay with family to give us something to do so we weren't isolating just at home by ourselves. We isolated with my mom. And then we went back to California when the deployment was over to pick my husband up and take him up to Bremerton, Washington, where we were at again, second time in Washington, this time with kids.
The rain.
Yes. I feel it was a lot better with the kids. I did not feel as isolated in Washington like I did before having kids. I was able to meet a lot more people and take the kids, get out of the house more with the kids.
There you go.
So we were supposed to be there for a little over a year, but just kidding. We were only there for 7 months before the Navy said, by the way, we're going to send you to Tennessee. So my husband was actually trying to go back to New York. And so we again were told, yeah, we're going to send you to New York. And then just kidding, on paper, we're sending you to Tennessee. So that's where we're at now in Millington, Tennessee, which is right north of Memphis. And we're going to be here until May of 2025. Where we're going, I have no idea. My husband is saying he wants to go to Japan. Maybe it will happen this time. Maybe they'll tell us we're going to Japan and then send us to Virginia. I don't know. Hopefully I didn't just jinx us because he really doesn't want to go to Virginia.
You put it out there. You put it out there. That's dangerous. Dangerous words.
Yes. Because Virginia is the only place that we have not gone yet. So even though we've both been to Virginia visiting, we've never been stationed there. So that would hit the trifecta of hitting all the U.S. ports for us. So we'll see what happens, though. So stay tuned. I won't know until we're about 6 months out.
You won't know till you know. You'll find out tomorrow.
It'll be Christmas, about Christmas time. That'll be our Christmas gift, of finding where we're going next.
It could be a good one or a bad one. We'll see what happens. But at least you'll know you'll be going somewhere.
Yeah, stay tuned for our next episode.
There we go. So there's a lot of rules that come, that some of them are spoken and you know about it, and some of them are unspoken. Like I heard the rumors. I remember reading back from like 70s. I can't remember specifically. I believe it was the Marines or something along those lines, that you had to walk on the left side with your spouse is in uniform, because this gives them the opportunity to be able to raise their right arm because it needs to be free to salute. I don't know if there's like social media policies or if there's different things of that. Can you give us a little bit of like maybe some unspoken rules that perhaps people don't think about?
Off the top of my head, cannot think of a lot of like very serious rules. I will say that there are a lot of rules that each branch of the military follows. Some follow more strictly than others, but there are some rules as far as like social media. One of the number one rules that we're not supposed to share ship movements or dates. The phrase loose lips sink ships. It's very important that family members, it's a rule that we do try to speak of, that we're not supposed to share dates and deployments and activities that can be considered dangerous if it came in the hands of the wrong people. So what they call, one of the other words I should have come up with is OPSEC, is operational security. And that's what they advise us to not share that information. Where we have had outleaks of and social media dates of returning from deployment. So as a result, return dates change. So we've had it to where like, oh yes, the ship is coming back on May 1st. And then when the command finds out that the date's been released,
Nope.
then it gets changed. Yep. So most often the date's delayed. So not earlier, it becomes longer. And that has happened more times than not, unfortunately. So all the plans that people made for homecoming, it's heartbreaking when it gets delayed again.
That is definitely heartbreaking.
So I will say that that's one of the most important ones. And they did a video to show us how important it is to make sure that you are not sharing a lot of information on social media. They did a OPSEC training for a family readiness group as part of the command, and showed how their command event with all the military families coming together for a picnic was put on a flyer and shared on Facebook. And even though they weren't part of the group, they were able to obtain the flyer information and find out the members of the group, and then Google mapped them and found out where they live. So they're in this OPSEC training showing a Google image picture of one of the people's homes. And it's very scary that it's so easy to find people nowadays.
It's very true.
Yes. So it helps us to be able to be more mindful of the information that we do share. But it's no different than civilian. You know, when you go on vacation, you don't share, hey, I'm going to be on vacation from this day to this day, so nobody will be home if you want to rob my house.
Exactly.
And so it is somewhat very, very similar to that. Is they encourage us not to share when our spouse is deployed, so that people don't know that we're home alone by ourselves. And it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, it's going to be noticeable when he's not home for 7 months in any of my pictures.
Yeah, well, you could just say, I was working this day or this and that. It's always a challenge.
Yeah,
it's always, you got to work around it in that way. He doesn't like to be in pictures. He had that day, he just didn't like it, so we still took pictures. There's always way. Yeah, I always make it whenever I was gone to the UK recently, I didn't post up my pictures till I was at least a week back, because I'm like, I'm not going to post up something during the middle of it. Like, I don't want anybody knowing that my wife's alone right now at home by herself, or that I'm gone and they don't know if she's with me or not, or something in that range. It's a safety thing. I totally agree with that entirely.
Yes, they call it personal security, of making sure that you taking care of yourself and not opening up yourself to be, vulnerability. And
very important.
It goes for both military and civilian. And the other phrase that we do hear a lot that I will say is, I'll believe it when I see it.
True.
And I have this phrase in my head a lot of times from experience. Like I said, we were going to go to Japan. Like, okay, I'll believe it when I see the orders, and orders did not say Japan. So we hear that a lot, especially with homecoming as well. People, once it gets closer, the date is shared with family members, and we're not supposed to share on social media, but my husband will be able to kind of share it through a code between us, so I know the date. And then, of course, all the military spouses are like, are you excited? It's coming up. And I just kind of nod and smile, because I'll believe it when I see it. There's been too many times that I've been given a date and then unfortunately it changes. So even though all of my family is like, are you excited? Are you excited? I'm like, yes, I'm excited. I do not feel the rush of knowing that he is actually coming home, and after 7 months apart, I'm finally going to get held and kissed and loved and have him in my arms until I see the ship coming around the point.
I believe that 110%. Now, you are more than a spouse. That's the thing, all the different hats you wear. How do you keep up with your pursuits of your own needs, your wants, your desires, your goal? How do you able to maintain Jade here? Because at times it's almost like when you're at home for these 6-7 months of deployment, it's almost like being a single parent for a little while.
Yes, I will say that the dynamic is very different compared to before kids and now having kids. Good and some struggles as well. Before kids, when he was gone on deployment, I focused on work, and I love horses and horseback riding. So I would go horseback riding a lot, traveling to see family, and making friends and building that support system to have others people to talk to, and having other Navy wives to talk to where we can complain about our husbands in the military lifestyle, but then also trying to make friends outside of the military, because there were days that I don't want to think about a deployment. I just want to talk to somebody that lives a normal life. as I think of it, a normal life where their
what is normal though? That's a good question.
Exactly. Not, apart, but know that there's other people. If I want to pretend I'm not in the military for a day. It's nice to have other friends not associated with the military specifically. But then when my husband was home, there were times where I would drop him off at the golf course on the way to go horseback riding. So we were able to both enjoy our goals. Because he doesn't like horseback riding. I don't care for golf. But his 4-hour golf game, and then I would go horseback riding for 2 hours and pick him up on the way home. Worked perfectly. And then we go to dinner together. So we got to enjoy both of our hobbies and interests, as well as in the evening together with a nice dinner. So with having kids, that has changed a little bit. With me not working, financial dynamic has changed, where we don't have a lot of funds to necessarily go horseback riding all the time or play golf all the time like we used to. We're sharing those financial funds with the kids to enable them to do all their activities with taekwondo, soccer, t-ball, traveling to see family. So having to make adjustments, and we still try to find that time where we meet with other military families and we do what we call child swap, where one night I will watch their kids while they have a date night, and then the next time they watch our kids, so that we can have a date night. So making sure that we're, for our anniversary, we went out to dinner together recently to celebrate, and we were able to have that time together where, reminisce and focus on us for a little bit, and then come home to the kids. Like we talked about, balance. It's all about balancing our wants and needs and hobbies, and ensuring that we have time for that. And sometimes it doesn't happen, unfortunately. Kyle was going to go play golf, but it rained this morning, so had to mix that golf game today, unfortunately. So we're going to try to plan for it next weekend. We just have to, understand, and so I knew that he would be quite upset today. So I'm trying to, like, it's okay. Like, let's focus on next weekend. Look forward to it next weekend.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I know that all the time whenever I'm trying to, I'm a calendar person as well. That's why calendars go a long way to be able to know, hey, I'm going to do this here and you're going to do this here. Like, having a Google Calendar now is really great, with my wife having that shared, so she knows, hey, if I'm doing this or doing that, or nope, we can't do that here because if this is happening at this time.
Yes.
So then you have to make those decisions, but it's important to keep up with who you are. And I love that you both have your passions and you both maintain that, because it's important to both keep you, because of, yes, you are married, but you're still each individuals. And a lot of people need to remember that when it comes to it, because of, you have to have your own identity. You just do. If not, whenever, I don't know, just leads to all kinds of different problems in my mind that I just visually see. But that's just, everybody has their own different way of living. So I'm not going to go down that route. So something that I was so happy to hear, your husband got to be home for the births. That was amazing to be able to have that opportunity and be able to be there for that. Now, when he's gone though, how do you prepare yourself and your children for when he's gone on his deployment? That may be 3 months, it may be 6 months, it may be 2 weeks. How do you prepare for that?
Kind of hard to prepare because life happens. You never know what's going to happen. And during that time, it was kind of preparing ourselves the best we could, with making, like we had talked about before, emergency plan, where if, shit hits the fan, this is what plan A is, plan B is, and communicating with each other what the crisis is and what the outcome is. And for a lot of that, it's on me. With him being gone, I'm the one that has to make a lot of those decisions, because sometimes if I can, I will try to communicate with him. But a lot of times it was, okay, well, we need a response right now. And I had to make that decision for our family and hope that it was the best decision for us. And as far as with the kids, making sure that they were supported. And that's one of the decisions that we made for me to stay home and continue caring for the kids, so that one of us was always there since he was on deployment. I was able to be there for the milestones with the kids when he wasn't. So I was able to take pictures of the kids, video, and share those with him so that we didn't miss anything together. I know it's not the same with him being gone, and he struggles with how much he missed out on between Christmas and birthdays, that he missed being deployed. But again, counseling helps with being able to talk through those feelings. And it's time that we can't get back, but we do the best we can with communicating during that time.
Yes.
And I don't know how I lucked out with two amazing kids that have adjusted so well with deployments. Just being honest with them on, hey, your daddy's on a ship. And it helps by them seeing him leave on the ship and us being able to watch the ship leave and go on deployment, and kept them distracted with play dates, going to the beach and the zoo, traveling to see family. That people ask, well, where's your dad? Oh, he's on deployment. He's gone. He's on the ship. And it was very hard for me to deal with the deployment as it was, but the kids, I felt, adjusted very well. And there's obviously at times had meltdowns where they missed their dad. And
yeah.
So, but I didn't have some of the meltdowns and the struggles that some families had where their children did not cope with their dad being gone or the mom being gone during a deployment. So there are families that struggle with the separation. And like I said, I don't know how I did it with adjusting them so well during the deployments, but we made it.
It's your personality that just comes into it. You absorbed it. Your personality goes, hey, this is what we're gonna do. This is what we have to do, and you're doing it. Like, some people approach that stuff differently, and the way you approached it was beautifully, became natural for you.
Glad that they felt supported, and that's what they said. They felt loved and supported, and that's what got them through it.
Now, with communication, we mentioned earlier with like social media and being able to have like videos and other bits of technology because we're in this whole new age. How has that been able to help with deployment there's milestones and times in their life that you can be able to like kind of share or be able to kind of send him videos that in order for the children to stay connected?
Yes, technology, as we talked about before, has been a blessing for the most part for our family with being apart from each other, and how the advancements have greatly improved over the years, going from deployments before kids when we had a very little communication and lack of technology to now we're able to take videos of the milestones for the kids, and I'm able to send those to him so he can share in those moments with us, with the kids growing, so it doesn't feel like he's so far away and missing those moments in the kid's life. And one of the things that we did together before he had gone deployment before kids to help us, he's like, keep the fire alive and our relationship strong, was making videos for each other, telling each other how much we loved each other and couldn't wait to see each other again, because we would go stretches of not being able to communicate, and having that video to watch of each other and reminding ourselves of how much we love each other and just hearing each other's voices. That was a huge impact for us in our relationship before kids, and we utilized that same aspect when we had our kids. Every night, I would play nursery rhymes and songs that my husband would sing, mostly Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star and Wheels on the Bus, that he recorded prior to leaving on deployment. And I would play them every night for the kids. So even though my husband was thousands of miles away on deployment, he sang songs for the kids every night before bed. So they still felt that connection. Yes. And with the video, seeing his face, singing to them to where it was, they would say, night, night, daddy, when he was done, as if he was there on the phone talking to them every night, and keeping that bond together so that they did not feel like he was apart from them. And so, of course, I had my own goodnight video as well to help, so it helps us not feel so far away, especially when we don't hear each other's voice often. So yay, technology. Definitely love the technology. Yes. And it's hard for the kids to understand, because even though I know their dad was not actually talking to them in that moment, they didn't understand that. And having to adjust, explaining and communicating to the kids of the schedule and all the changes with deployments. One of the things that you had mentioned earlier, calendar. And for us, we have our calendar in the phone that we can update our activities.
Yeah.
And so we end up having our calendar on the wall for the kids to be able to see it as well. And we wrote down my husband's schedule so they knew when daddy was working. So if he
Aw.
had a D on the day and then he had a duty day. So if the kids came, Mommy, where's daddy? Like, go check the calendar. Because I got tired of, yeah,
Where is
the
he? It'll
calendar,
tell you.
you know, and so I was like, oh, D, he's got duty today, so daddy won't be home today. And having them learn his schedule and when he would be home. And so sometimes they were upset, and other times it helped them feel control of like, oh, daddy is on duty today. He won't be home. And empowering them to understand that gave them
That is
so
a
much
good
strength.
control right there. Yeah.
So then it turned into, well, daddy's not here. Can we go get ice cream? Yeah. So, you know.
Oh man, I love it. I love it.
Yeah. So it was a great learning moment to be able to empower them with that schedule as well and help them be a part of it to where, you know, well, I want to go do this with daddy. Okay, well, let's find a day that has an O for off. And what do you guys want to do on the off day with daddy? Oh, well, we want to go do this activity. And I would pencil it in on the calendar. And, you know, that would be like the family time and have to work that around. Well, if daddy had a golf written on there, they learned D for golf. And that was one of the first words we learned, was knowing when daddy was going to have him time.
Important to know when it's him time on that. Yes, especially when he hasn't had the opportunity at all, being on the ship or being between the 36-hour shift. Like, gosh, I still can't get past that one of how hard with anybody that does those kind of stuff like that is crazy.
And like we said, technology and how much is advanced. My grandparents were Air Force and they used snail mail during deployments. I cannot even imagine having to wait days and weeks on end to get just a letter. And right now I'm trying to talk to my husband and get things like right now for answers. I can't imagine waiting for letters.
You're really having to make quick decisions at that point.
Yes.
Like, and who knows? And we can write an email that can be like 5 sentences long and it makes sense, but they're having to write something that needs to last at least for a month or 2 months worth of communication back then. And, I feel like our writing has suffered as a result.
I agree. And I feel really bad for complaining. During the first deployment, Kyle was only able to communicate with me through email. Like every 3 days, I would get an email, which is very hard to go, you know, days without being able to communicate with your spouse.
True.
It's really hard. If you ever try, it's really hard because you don't know how many things that you guys talk about on a daily basis and communicate and to make decisions together. That during that time, I have to make decisions on a daily basis. I can't wait 3 days for his input sometimes. It's more so of, hey, I did this, by the way. Hope that's okay. And I remember complaining about it. And then my grandmother's over there. Yep, I use snail mail. Like, I'm so sorry.
So
I'm so sorry. Yeah. And I, you know, complain about the phone calls. There are times where he's able to call me occasionally from the ship. And I should be forever grateful that I get to hear his voice, but it is such a pain in the butt because he will say hello and there's a 3-second delay. And I'm like, for me, and then I say hello, and then he says hello, and it takes a minute to know that we can both actually hear each other.
Yes.
And so usually a phone call is just a hello, I love you, I miss you, because if we end up having any type of important conversation, somehow the phone knows that we're in a very important conversation and it disconnects. So we try not to have very important conversations via phone, which is a struggle. And there's times where I went for a period of 4 weeks without a phone call from him. So can you imagine going 4 weeks without hearing your spouse's voice? It's very, very hard.
That'd be really hard. Yeah, I couldn't imagine that. I've made it a point when I was gone just for the 4 weeks. I made it a point whenever. Oh, are we still there? Are you here? Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's a way like you froze for a minute. I can hear you now though.
Oh, sorry. No, it's okay. Cool. Making sure. I was like, oh no, yeah. That I can only imagine how hard that is. I couldn't.
Oh, we just got an example
that
of,
for 4 weeks.
Technology delay. We're having a very important conversation, and it knew, so it was disconnecting.
Look at that. It knew. It knew exactly. Man, how in the world do you put that curse out there,
I'm
Jade?
telling you,
Look what you did.
yeah, I'm trying to share my struggles with you so you can empathize what I went through.
We were giving you
Yeah.
real life examples here. I love it.
Yes, yes.
Now, earlier you were mentioning about a lot of programs and a lot of supports that are available out there for military spouses. Do you have any that you would like to kind of be able to recommend? And I'm gonna have like links in the comments for people.
Yes. So again, some of the branches are different. For us with the Navy, an ombudsman is a great source of information that acts as a liaison, as I mentioned, between the command and families. So I encourage a lot of military families to get the contact information for the service members command ombudsman to have that information in case of an emergency. And they also help provide resources. And as an ombudsman, some of the top resources that I provide to families with Fleet and Family Services, which is located on base and helps family members to do counseling, financial, budgeting and planning, um, preparing for kids, and so many other resources for families. Another one is Military One Source. Right now, our move coordination got switched over from the move.mil website and is now through Military One Source. So Military One Source is another location for counseling and moving information to help coordinate our moves across the country, tutoring, financial support. Oh my gosh, so much to Military One Source as well. And then going off to financial support, Navy Marine Corps Relief Society helps offer loans and grants for military members and families in need of going through financial struggles. They are a great resource for help as well. There's a lot of resources depending on the different bases that each one has their own resources and programs as well. Another one, the USO, which I think you see at airports when you go around airports. They have USOs for service members as a relief location. They have those as well at command, and they have a lot of functions and events to help service members build a community and support as well. The Red Cross is another emergency contact during a crisis situation. Number one, call the Red Cross, and they help to, as we say, like investigate and confirm your crisis and send that to the command. For instance, if there's like a death in the family, they will contact and find out more information to verify that there was a death in the family and send that information to the command. Mm-hmm. As you understand, an investigation can take some time. So there is a delay in reporting between the Red Cross and the command, which is why we encourage people to use the ombudsman, because we can get that information to the command faster.
That's awesome. That's really good to be able to have that, and having services available now in comparison to what I've heard from whenever I had friends that were family members that were in World War II and had some family members that were in Vietnam and Korea. It's tenfold amazing now as it's developed over time for today. And that's in general with life in general. But you look at the medical field of how it's grown, and resources that were not available to us in the 90s that's now available to us in the 2000s. And it's so cool just to see all these more programs, and some that have been around for 100+ years, like the Red Cross, and how it's evolved and how it's changed. And like the USO has been around for that long as well, to be able to do what it does and how it changes. And I mean, it's just a blessing that stuff's out there to be able to help service members and family members and just communities as a whole.
And you're talking about the help and technology that has advanced, going back to the mental health needs. I've gone through Military One Source for my counseling needs, as well as Fleet and Family Services for counseling. And with that, I have seen counseling providers in person. I have done them over the phone, and we've done video. They have so many options now to provide services to people. Because for me, when I could with the kids, I did not want to have to take the kids to my appointments all the time. Phone call, locking myself in the bedroom like I am right now, I'm able to video or do a phone call to still get those needs met and take care of myself. So I love technology and advancements to help families.
I can definitely say that has been a blessing for my therapy as well for over the during like the COVID time. And then my individual that I had for a while moved, and he goes, "Hey, like, do you still want to be a patient? I'm moving, but I can still do the virtual stuff with it." And I go,
Yes.
"Yes, please, thank you." Like, because less than probably 15 years ago it would have been a nope, sorry, I only have the office visit or something that they're in place. Now, there are so many things that we have not been able to discover. Are there things that I maybe overlooked that during our time that you would like to discuss?
There are so many stories that I can share and experiences that I have had personally, as well as stories that I have learned from others. That is why there are so many military families and spouses that have created their own blogs, because every day is an adventure and you never know what curveball is going to get thrown at us. I don't have
True.
the time. I am not a very good with obviously speaking or public speaking as well as writing. I don't write as
You
much.
have killed it this
Thank you,
episode.
thank
You've done
you.
phenomenal.
But I have had families tell me that I should start a blog with everything we have going on in life, but it's it's very unique and crazy, and I have so much that I could share. If you have any questions that come up, I'm sure that I could answer them. And, or as we talked about, having future podcasts where I can dive down deeper into some of our experiences that we've had. There's just too many to go over in one episode.
Now, are there any last minute things of advice that you would like to leave, like say some words of wisdom for people?
I will go ahead and say thank you to my family and friends for supporting us in this crazy lifestyle, because it is not for the faint of heart. It's hard to live so far away from family and friends and try to build a new village of support system every time we move. And for me, I feel like one of my goals every day is to keep the kids alive and remember to eat. And as long as I can do those two things, I feel like it's a successful day. So, because there are times where I forget to eat because I am so focused on the kids and taking care of them, I forget to
Yeah,
take care of myself. So, as long as the kids get taken care of and I remember to take care of myself as well, I call that a win. So,
that
yep,
is a big
some
win.
days are, hey, let's watch movies and cuddle on the couch, and other days we're on an adventure. So, I love being able to focus on family and have that flexibility with them and make sure that they're supportive and enjoy this crazy, wonderful life.
That's amazing. That's phenomenal. And having this time to be able to sit in with you is a huge gift within itself. So Jade, thank you for coming in and doing this. Because of again, that's we're not going to put in years here, but it's been a long time, and we've kept a really good relationship. Sometimes we don't talk, but maybe once a year, sometimes 3 times a year, or sometimes a little bit more, but we always will try to exchange, hey, it's your birthday, or hey, something's here, happy birthday, or just send a message, are you good? How you doing? And that, again, that communication,
Yep.
it's just keeping the lines open, and being able to sit here today and do this has been a complete honor. So Jade, I'll thank you.
Well, thank you
Thank you.
so much. I feel very privileged and I love our friendship. And like you said, we understand each other's life happens and we respect each other to
Yes, it
where
does.
every time we talk again and we hang out, it's like, oh, we were just together hanging out the day before. We
Yep.
pick up right where we
Just
left
picks
off.
right up.
Yes, yes. And again,
And that's why I love our walks when we get to
yes,
walk. Like, I love getting a good walk with you. It's so much fun.
yes,
It makes the day
it
easier.
does. It does. Having friends that understand and are always there, it makes life so much more enjoyable and getting through those hard times, knowing that friends are there no matter what.
Love it. Love it so much. That's the words of wisdom right there. Friends, family, community. That's what it takes to make it through life there. So as we wrap up here, if you would like to reach out to me, my email is Cade, which is spelled CADE, at learningfromfriends.com. You could be able to send me an email. I'm on Facebook. You can send me a message that way. I do have a Twitter page. I have a Patreon page. If you'd like to be able to go in, donate $1, $10, $100, $1,000,000. If you don't ask, you don't know. So whatever you're feeling, generosity on that one, because of this is a hobby of mine. But as we all know with hobbies, they can get a little expensive at times. So just being able to have that there. So as we wrap up here, you can look those up on Learning from Friends podcast. You can look at learningfromfriends.com. It'll take you to links as well that way. And as you all know, my name is Kay Curtis, your tour guide on this lovely adventure that I like to call Learning from Friends. And most of all, don't forget, let your curiosity fly high.